Let's start with introductions.
Matthew Penn, one of the directors.
I'm Peggy Pharr Wilson. I'm one of the actors.
Matt Neely, one of the actors.
Robert Zukerman, another actor.
So our artistic director, Alan Paul, is ill, so normally he'd be right here. So just a little bit about, so this is our 13th 10 by 10, and the process for this is a little different than the rest of our season. We sent out invites to hundreds of playwrights who we love, and they send in their 10-minute plays. Fun fact, they're not always new. It's called the 10 by 10 New Play Festival. That's a little bit of a lie. Some of them are a little old. So what happens is that we go through a big reading process, headed up by Maura from our artistic team, and multiple readers read it, and we whittled the list from 150 plays were submitted this year down to about 30, and that's when Alan and I join it. And then the process to select is very, very interesting for us because we have some actors who we see every year and we love. And as you start going through it, you start going, well, here's a great role for Peggy. Here's a great role for Robert. Oh, and Peggy, Robert already did, two old people on a park bench last year. So again, maybe they'll be in a bed this year.
Alzheimer's.
No more Alzheimer's plays. And we really go through, and it's a real careful balancing act because we want to make sure that all 6 of our actors have great roles, varied roles, and have relative parity across them. So one person's not in 10 of them and one of them's in 1. And then with that process, that's when we bring in Matt Penn as the other director with Alan. So Matt, tell the audience how you and Alan have, in the past years, decided who directs which play, and what's that boxing match like?
It's actually not much of a boxing match. We usually sit down and say, like, which plays do we just each of us love? And we have affection for all of them, but this year there was not really much overlap in terms of plays we just felt compelled to do. So then it was really about dividing up the last couple in which one of them had a particular staging challenge we thought would be interesting. Another one had a particular acting challenge we thought would be interesting to direct. So there's very little fisticuffs, particularly this year. It went very easily. When there are fisticuffs, he's the artistic director, so he wins.
That's not why he's homesick.
The truth is revealed. So, as part of the spirit of 10 by 10, when this started 13 years ago, the concept was there's 10 days from first rehearsal to first, he's just like, first rehearsal to first performance, and then there'd be 10 performances, 10 over 2 weekends, lined up with the citywide 10 by 10 festival. That now includes like ice sculptures and fireworks. So Peggy, talk about the early years. The first year, what's changed since 10 by 10 by 1 versus 10 by 10 by 13?
Well, when we first started, I don't think any of us thought that it was going to be well attended. It's February, everybody's holed in, and we were just shocked that every show sold out. And I can't remember if that first year, if we extended or not.
They wanted to extend, but I think
Oh,
one or two of the actors couldn't,
but-
so we weren't able to.
We were just so excited that, and then we would hear back from people, it's like, you're the only thing going on in town, this is great. So the second year we added a week, and then I think we added more. So it's just, we're so thrilled to be able to do something in the winter time, to get you out of the house, get us out of the house.
So we go into, there's how many days of rehearsal? 5?
9.
Really 6 days of rehearsal, 2 days of tech, and then it's
Yeah,
8 days.
each play gets about 4 hours, I think, if you break it down, of rehearsal.
Wow.
It is fast and furious, and I think what we have all learned doing this for so long is we come in pretty much 90% off the memorized, because we just don't have the time. You can't be worrying about that because you just got so many other things to worry about. So that was, I think, a lesson for all of us. Is like, we have to really be prepared. I mean, really be prepared for that first day, because there's just we're running back and forth between the two rehearsal halls, play, and then you go home and say, what did we do today? I can't even remember. It's fast and furious and very exciting, and I think that's why we do it. It's challenging.
Robert, how do you prepare and how do you pace yourself through the very short rehearsal process? Because sometimes you'll be in 6 or so pieces.
Yeah, I start by drinking a lot. No, the three of us, as Peggy said, start work very early, not just because we're older actors, but because there's almost no rehearsal time. And you need lines to seep in. It can't be just on the surface. So I'll start a month or 6 weeks. First of all, I'll beg them to send the scripts. I like to have at least 2 scripts before Christmas, so I can work over the Christmas and New Year's holidays when I've got a lot of time. And then I will learn, you know, like Peggy said, as much as I can. An actor friend of mine says, you get to the point where you're living room perfect, right? Where you know your lines perfectly in your living room, and then you go into rehearsals and the whole dynamic changes. You're actually talking to somebody else, and you're actually having to deal with whatever obstacles the directors throw at you. But it's very fast. I said recently in a news interview when they asked what was, give me an anecdote, and I said, well, a director once said to me, that's wonderful, Robert, but could you die faster? And that sort of sums up this process.
So Matt, how do you, through the years, how have you kind of prepared and figured out how to kind of surf the waves that are those 6 days and then 2 days in the space?
Well, everyone makes fun of me because I keep a little running tally of how many times I've read over the play. So, and I try to get to 100 of each one before opening, and I just made it. So, yeah, because honestly, it just takes that much time for them to sink in these days. When I was younger, I could memorize much faster. But
You've got 2 little ones.
well, yeah, and I have 2 little kids and, you know, a job. But and we had COVID and RSV, stomach bug. This is all in January, so I didn't get to them as much as I wanted to. But yeah, you just know once you're in rehearsal, as Peggy was saying, there's just not that much time. And normally, I think working on a play, memorization really solidifies when you're rehearsing. Like once you're up on your feet with the other people, it really gets in your brain quickly. But since we have so few hours to do that, you just really need to be prepared ahead of time. And then, honestly, you're so tired by the end of the day, you can't go home and like really hammer your lines. So, you just try to pick little moments here and there, or, if you're, we have a lunch break or something, like run over the plays a few times, and, you're just kind of squeezing in your preparation in between other things.
Director Matt, how do you prepare knowing that you're gonna have 5 little 10-minute scenes, and it's kind of whatever we have in our prop warehouse is what we've got, and what we kind of have in costumes. How do you kind of figure out how you're going to do each of these little snapshots and prepare for, because you also have a marathon of directing 5 very different plays very quickly?
Yeah, I mean, I make a list, obviously, of all the props, all the things that are scripted, but also something I might need that might not be scripted. And if there's special wardrobe issues, I'll let we have a great production team, so I'll let everybody know that 2 weeks in advance. But then I will sit down and I will stage the scripts in my head. But I'll do it in a way where I sort of leave latitude, so that if Robert says, you know what, I want to go over here at that point, I go, fine. I've spent a lot of time, not just in the theater, but also directing television shows like Law and Order, where you have 7 or 8 minutes of rehearsal for a scene. So 7 or 8 minutes, you get very fast about saying, you know what, come over here, boom, 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 and you're set. These are 10-minute pieces, so they're longer, but frankly, the staging of them, for me, is not that hard, just because I think I probably shot just at Law and Order 5,000 scenes. So and then there were other shows. So you have a dexterity about, you know what, that he just did something I didn't expect, but it's better. I'm gonna let him do that, and I'm gonna have her cross left at that point. So it's like that.
You know, that is actually super helpful for you in particular, the way you direct, because we come in the first day and he's like, yeah, you start here, you walk over here, you know, you very much know the blocking already, you've mapped it out. You know, oftentimes in larger plays, you might be figuring out the blocking as you go, but this is already, you know it. We'll adapt if we need to, but that just takes a lot of guesswork out of the scene, and we can just go right into it. Which
Sure,
is
with a
super
3-week
helpful.
rehearsal, it would be quite different. You know, you'd want the actors to discover that and have it be utterly organic. Here we have to sort of create the structure, the physical structure of the play as staged, and then, you know, like I said, these are extraordinary actors, and as a director, the smartest thing you can do is listen to them, which I do.
You do. I will attest to that.
So one thing we have discovered through the years is that we try to avoid any of the 10-minute plays that have a lot of period costumes or very specific period costumes. Like we can handle one of those a year. We can't have 10 plays that all take place in different eras because we have limited time, limited resources. We have an amazing costume collection, but not everything under the sun is there. But at the same time, we get pieces that have such elaborate technical needs that we're just like, sorry, no. But you give us like a park bench, this season a bed, like those are the stuff we really look for. We look for stuff that's simple, and we also realize to look for things that are funny and fun and light. We can't have 10 downers. We can have one downer, carefully placed in Act 1. But it's really important to make sure we figured out our needs over the past few years. Because there's a great one we read this year that took place in the Coliseum. At a gladiator fight, which I personally loved, but it was one of those moments you just go, that would be really fun. Our costume team will walk out on us.
We didn't have enough Christians.
Or a Coliseum.
So let's, because there's a lot of you here, let's open up for questions.
Quick question, does any of the 10 by 10s have they been developed into plays? If the response has been really good?
Yes.
Boca came out
Boca,
of,
that I know.
that
What
came
else?
out of 10 by 10 we did, I don't know, 5 years ago. It's all kind of a blur. It was just a scene, I don't know if you were there, I held a gun on Ken Tiger to make him eat my lasagna.
Oh, yeah.
You heard that? And that was Jessica, and she turned it into Boca, and then when we did it. So as far as I know, that might be the only one.
I think it's the only one.
There was one of the 10-minute plays that I was in with Carrie that moved to a short play festival in New York, but it stayed exactly the same. It wasn't expanded.
Which one was that?
The father and the son. The father is a former physician, I think. He was in prison, and the daughter's visiting him
Oh, I remember that
in
one.
prison. Yeah, we did that at a new play festival in New York. So, you know, but otherwise, I don't think
I
anything.
think so. I think that's the only one.
Well, Law and Order, of course, came out of the 10 by 10.
I'm wondering about all the tape and everything on the floor.
You don't see it.
What?
No, you don't see it.
It's for where we put,
This is my specialty,
You know,
right
I-
there,
I-
that's just for me.
Color coded for the different plays,
Yes.
the different actors.
because we
tells us
come out
where
in the
to
dark.
place
and
the
we're-
furniture.
We're putting furniture and stuff in, so hopefully it's not too distracting.
Some of it's fluorescent, some of it's just
So
a
every
color.
piece has a meaning.
Oh,
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
everything.
So the
And we
first scene
try-
is red tape, then we go yellow, you know, it's written backstage.
Yellow
We
Remind
try
us.
really hard to make it not look like a runway at an airport.
No,
It's
it
just,
doesn't.
there's
But if
so
you need
much
to
time.
land your helicopter here, it's not
On the
difficult.
green or the yellow? Where-
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, for example, okay, at the end of the first scene, I will take a chair that's sitting right over here and I will place it on these spike marks, we call it, over there. So it directs us, because remember, we're moving furniture in between each show
In the dark.
in a very low blue light.
Okay, thank you, that's why I asked.
Yeah.
And this is not actually a lot for us. Normally it's chaos up here. So this is actually, we're doing a nice
Chaotic
minimal,
enough.
we're doing a nice minimal job this year with the spike marks.
This one is the center of the stage, so we know where we are.
And we do this for all of our shows. Just frequently, you're not in a position where you can see it, but the actors are distracted enough. You don't see that there's tape everywhere.
And sometimes you'll see a stage manager or an ASM, assistant stage manager, going around before the curtain, activating what's called glow tape, right, with a flashlight. So if you see her doing that, that's what she's doing. She's not sending weird signals to China.
I have a question for Matt, because you've been doing an intro to this event.
Yeah.
How long have you been doing it, and how long does it take you to work? You've got to work that up in addition to learning your plays, right?
So yeah, early on, not the first year, maybe the second or third year, I was like, oh, we should have like a kind of an opening, and you know, I thought of it like Saturday Night Live, so we each pop out behind the curtain and it'd be like Matt Neely, like, hey, you know, and then it was like, oh, Julie's like, what are you gonna do next year? I'm like, Mickey Mouse Club, you know, so it was like, you know, saying our names.
It's gotten more, it's gotten more and more intricate.
And then she was like, oh, Hamilton's really popular. I'm like, I've never heard it, but I can do a rap song, so it just keeps evolving. But honestly, all year, I'm like, God, I gotta think of a song, because I don't know who the other actors are. You know, I know they'll be here, but I don't know who can sing, not sing, and you know, so I kind of look for things that are going to be a little more, you know, patter song or something you could kind of talk through a little bit. But also, you know, this year Alan wanted me to do one from La Cage aux Folles, and so I wrote an entire song, and then he was like, no, that's too depressing. We need something more upbeat. I mean, the lyrics were depressing, but the music was. So I was like, well, I have the first verse of Summer Nights from Greece. He's like, yes! I'm like, okay, so.
But don't give it away.
Well,
Maybe that's what it is.
I mean, come
We don't
on.
know.
Do you do all the writing, or is it collaborative effort?
I write them.
You do
I
all the
try to start in December, but, you know, try to finish it before we start rehearsal. But, you know, then when we come in, usually we did tweak some of the lines for various reasons, and you know, Robert had a funny idea, and you know, there's just there's changes that happen. But we had an actual musical director this year who did the sheet music and everything. It was very legit. Like,
Yeah,
we started rehearsing that day one.
Yeah, we zoomed in. Vadim Feikner, who's one of our associate artists, who's one of our music directors, who we got to know from Spelling Bee. So we actually zoomed him in for the first time ever, because we have those resources, we have those friends who want to help us out.
Right,
So,
and he would find like, okay, well, no, we'll go down here, up, you know, like modify the song a little bit, and you know, so.
yeah, it felt so. When we got the sheet music, I was like, sheet music.
So professional.
Professional.
I know. 10 by 10's
Look
grown.
at 10 by 10 is legit.
Robert?
New plays are very iterative when they get onto a stage, because they're developing, changing, modifying. How much do you modify these plays when they come on stage?
There's a lot done beforehand.
Not much at all. I mean, any changes we run past the playwright, but there are very few requested changes. We had one play this year where there was sort of a coda, and there was some discussion about whether to include the coda or not. We did, but the plays are very true to what we get early on in the process.
I would disagree with the director somewhat, because the actors, we start work on this.
This is
I
the
like
first
it.
time he's ever disagreed.
It's new.
We start work on these plays, as we've said, you know, weeks and weeks in advance. So the actors tend, and we repeat them and repeat them. So as Matt said, by the time we come into rehearsal, we have gone through these plays 50, 60, 70 times. We know them probably, and I hate to say this, better than some of the playwrights, okay? We know lines that work, so I'm pestering him online, are you really going to make me say that particular line? Or, this line makes no sense, could you please, so that by the time we get into rehearsal, we have a script that's as clean as possible, you know, so that we can move. And then we have the challenge of the clock. This year we had a play that ran, it was a terrific piece that I particularly love, but it ran 14 minutes in one of the final run-throughs. And we had to do a bunch of internal cuts, which sometimes slices away pieces that don't, so that you have stuff that don't, you know, they don't go together. So the process of adjusting, if you will, some of these scripts, always through the director, always through the playwright, you hope, in order to get what you see is complicated.
And the playwrights are great. They're very, very open. I've never heard one of them say, absolutely not, you may not change that word. They want it to work too.
And we make some edits before it even gets to the actors, because sometimes we'll get something and we will say, this is 20 minutes. Like, they're rarely truly 10 minutes. Sometimes we've got some where like, this is like 7 minutes.
Yep.
Do we milk it to 10? We get a lot that are like easily 15 to 20 minutes. So we do some editing on our end before it gets to the actors. But there's things we don't really discover till it's in the space, or honestly in front of the audience. Matt, seeing a lot of my notes is just like, how do we land this joke? How do we land, like, that's funny, why are they not laughing? But again, we have really only 2 previews.
No. Thursday night,
2
Friday
useful
night.
previews, because we do a double on Saturday, so we can't really change anything. So we kind of get 2 shots to try to figure it out. Thankfully, the actors are all great at what they do and are flexible and understand when things change. But rarely what we get submitted to us is exactly what's done on the stage.
And the order changes too.
Oh, the order
The
changes.
directors will watch it, first and go, wait, that can't go there. Or, this year, one of the younger actors was in 4 in a row and was like, uh-oh, we need to kind of split him up because it's just crazy. I mean, the best show, if we should sell tickets to backstage, because the moving of the furniture around and everybody running around and everybody stripping naked and putting it on the next costume, and I mean, it is crazy back there. But just trust us, it's a good show back there.
That's why we make the young ones do 4 in a row. We don't do 4 in a row.
It's in their contract.
Yeah.
Yes.
We were here for the first preview, and it was really great. And you were all, I mean, you were so well prepared. And I was wondering, in the course of the run, it's a short run, and hectic and all. Do you find that the performance of nuances change, that it gets deeper as you move along?
Very much, yes. I mean, I personally, I'm sure you guys too, I treat first preview to me as opening, because you're in front of an audience, so you gotta be as good as you can be. But that's the first time we've really had an audience. In dress rehearsal, we have a few people who work at Barrington Stage come, but it's very few, so you don't really know where the laughs are, you don't know how it's gonna play in front of an audience. And so the initial reaction lets you know what's working and what's, what maybe isn't working, although obviously audiences vary. But I think it evolved quite a bit. I thought night 1 went great, but I thought it evolved quite a bit into night 2. And we also made a bunch of technical lighting changes between night 1 and night 2 that if you come back, you might realize. And that was all because of audience reaction.
Yeah, we made a couple of huge technical changes, so I'll be interested to see if you noticed them. No, they were big. They're big.
Yes.
So I was wondering how the concept of 10 by 10 started. I mean, so some of the plays you say are 14 or 20 and you cut them, and some are 7. So why?
It has to do with the city of Pittsfield, really.
Well, so 10-minute plays are a thing. They're a thing.
They're festivals all over.
What happened was, I'm going to butcher this story, is that Julie Boyd, our founding artistic director, and her husband Norman were down in Phoenix or Tuesday. They're somewhere warm, and they're doing they're doing these 10-inch by 10-inch art frames called a 10 by 10 sale to raise money for some charity. And Julie, being Julie, was like, we should do something like that in February. Let's do 10-minute plays. And she contacted the director of cultural development for the city. The city came on board. What started as Barrington State's doing 10-minute plays, and I think they did the 10-inch by 10-inch art auction here has now become this beast of a thing, which includes all 17 restaurants are doing restaurant week right now, and there's literally 10 minutes of fireworks on Fridays, and 10 minutes of play every day. Like it's become this beast, all because Julie was like, "It'll be fun. Let's do some 10-minute plays in February. People might come." And now it's 4 weekends of 10-minute plays and 23 performances. So that's where it kind of came from. Was just an inspiration from Miss Julie Boyd.
So are you ever tempted to do that 20 or that 7?
No, it's against the rules.
It seemed very arbitrary, that's what I mean.
We've had slightly longer pieces through the years, and you will feel it. Like there's something about the 10-minute, the ones that have been like 14, like they feel really long in this format. And if we were to do one that's 7, you would feel like we shorted you, because it will feel short. So it is a nice clip to it. Like when one's not 10 minutes, we all know it's not 10 minutes. And they're like somewhere between 9 and 12, but when they get past 12, overstay their welcome.
There's a lot of playwrights now that specifically write 10-minute plays, because there's 10-minute play festivals all across the country. So there's some that it's kind of a separate skill to be able to write a 10-minute play, and there's a lot of them that's what they do. That's their
Sort of
specialty.
like a short story.
Yes, exactly,
Yes.
exactly, like a short story.
I mean, it's packed and everything, all the stuff they have to learn and everything. Do they have the luxury of an understudy and a kind of emergency?
Last
Have you
year-
ever had it in the
Last
town?
year-
Have an emergency where somebody can't be there?
Well,
Yes.
last year, one of the actresses for the final weekend tested positive for COVID. So it just so happened that the assistant production manager had an MFA in acting. So she came in, we did what's called a put-in rehearsal. She walked the stage with a script, but she really didn't need it. She was really sharp. And boom, she fit in. So that was lucky.
So is there now, knowing that, is there a plan B in case, I mean, nobody has to learn somebody else's?
I could give you some pages of script.
There is a plan B that Team Artistic has after last year, in case, and that is like calling favors and begging. Like it's rough, but also because of that change last year, the actress who fell ill was African American. Our MFA carrying and equity card carrying assistant production manager was white. So unfortunately, for that last week, it became 7 by 10.
Yeah, we had the first 7 by 10 festival.
7
those
or
last
8?
3 shows.
Or 8.
8 by 10. 8 by 10
'Cause
because we had to cut 2
There's
of them.
2 roles that just was not appropriate for Sarah to play. So it became it was like a collector's item of the weekend. So like, come enjoy 8 by 10 or 10 by 8, depends how you see it. I think there was a question up here. Yes.
I had a question, and maybe it's more pressure than we've identified James here. But as actors or as a director, if you were giving the playwright your feedback, your preference for how you would like to see a 10-minute play written, what are the things that make a 10-minute play great for you as actors or great for you as a director?
You should ask the playwright there. I mean, I would say just quickly that all the details, the dramatic structural, elements that go into any regular, full-length play, would work best in a small play with rising action, some kind of conflict resolution, good character development, interesting, story, and
Yeah, I mean, tonight in particular, the first play of the first act and the last play of the first act are utterly different. Peggy's in both. They are utterly different. One has a real social awareness component, and one is just a wonderful comedy. But the truth is, as a director or actor, I think you look for what makes this story go. Why, if I'm on page 7 and I want to find out what's on page 8, that's pretty good. And whether it's a socially aware drama, a socially aware comedy, a flat out comedy, it's delightful to work on all of them. you want to have the play have some resonance so that all of you and all of us feel like, oh, I just saw something that was really fun and consequential in some way.
And there's no room for fat. Like, there has to be a tight script, because you can't meander in 10 minutes. So really good playwrights are the ones who kind of get to the conflict, and in a nice 10-minute play like James's, it's all right there. It's very contained, and when they're really good, you don't feel like you have to go in and trim anything away, because every word is precious and it all makes sense, it all clicks. We also have a handful of playwrights who do come back every year. So like Jana Metzger, who had a piece in last year, when she came up to see it and saw the Berkshire, she was like, I know exactly what I'm writing next year, which is the one that takes place in a dispensary. This year. We have people like Brent Ascari, who wrote American Underground, and Andy Warhol and Iran. He has figured out our audience and what they like, and he wrote the first piece of the 10 by 10 this year. We've also discovered what y'all like, and what we know our audience likes is references to the Berkshires. So sometimes they feel a little forced, but we've discovered it's actually one of the things we asked this year was anything that could take place in the Berkshires, reference the Berkshires. Like, you drop in a Bistro Zinc reference, we're golden. But we've discovered that it makes it a little more special. There are a handful of people who write stuff for us every year. And hopefully they get in every year. It's competitive, but.
Yeah, I just want to go back to, you said you sent out like 150 invitations to playwrights that you know of. When does that, I am looking for the big arc, when does that happen to the time where you make the choice and you're sending the plays to the two directors?
Maura?
Hi, that's my part of it. So we reached out to actually over 300 writers this year in late August, and we give them about a month to get their script to us. We tell them some of the things that we look for in a script, like if you can throw in something that's Berkshire relevant, these are the kind of ensemble that you're going to work with, so things that can be easily cast with that. And then we got 150 back from that 300. And so then it was a process of reading throughout the fall. We had it down to 30 before Thanksgiving, and then final choices before Christmas. And the second we had them ready, we shot them right over to these guys so they could start memorizing.
Thank you.
So from like August to the holidays was really the time period.
Yes, I'm here.
I wonder whether you've ever directed or performed in a 10-minute play that you encountered months or years later as a potentially more attractive, longer work?
There's actually a scene in this that I staged as part of a full length years ago that the writer then honed into a play that stands on its own. And so that was sort of almost the reverse, which is I'd seen the full length. I really enjoyed the full length. I thought it was terrific. That writer then, years later, recognized that one of those scenes was a wonderful scene, and she crafted it as a 10-minute piece, so sort of the reverse of that.
We did that too. I can't remember, but we were looking at the sky. It was a piece from the middle of a full play.
Oh, that's what's his name?
I know.
What's
Really wonderful actor, playwright, and
Almost Maine. Who wrote Almost Maine?
John Carriani.
Yeah, Carriani.
That was it.
Carriani,
That was it.
Yeah.
Come on, it's only 130 plays to remember, Peggy.
Listen, that's my worst thing on stage is names. I can't remember anybody's name on stage. And there's one play we do where, I don't know if you've noticed, I have to say, with my husband and I'm supposed to call his name, and the last 3 times we've done it, I've said just my husband because I can't remember what his name is.
Because there happened to be this year a lot of Sams and Bills and so forth. So
Well, I never know what my character's name is, so when someone says it, I'm like, who's that?
We have time for one or two more questions.
This is really just more of a comment, that I have this great realization right now of the importance of this collaboration. I think I've been to all 13. And I've always been amazed how in 10 minutes there could be a complete plot, complete character development, total story. It was amazed me. But I think I see how what the writer sort of has these guidelines and these limits, and then the actors, how they bring it to life. I could never understand the costume changes, the scene changes, trying to remember all who you were and what play. It always amazed me, and I just thank you because they're extraordinary. It's one of my favorite things.
Oh, good, thank you so much.
It's done, it's like magic, and it's made me think about, I write articles occasionally, like condensing, like get the fat out, how important that is to make your points and how it can be done in 10 minutes.
You know, the truth is, if you've ever read a book to your son, daughter, grandchild, it's always amazing how a children's book has a beginning, a middle, and an end. The best ones are crafted beautifully. And that can be in 10 pages or 8 pages or, you know, a book for a second grader or a kindergartner. And that's true, I think that is inherent to drama, which is that it has a beginning, middle, and end. And we'll invest in the world, as long as that writer is consistent to it, we'll invest in the world. And as audience members and as people that bring these plays to life, that's what you look for, which is, does it start here, move there, and end here? You can be pretty sure it's not a good play if it starts here and sort of trips over to here and stops. It needs a beginning, a middle, and an end.
Like a bad joke.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna end with the question, what's your favorite piece you've been in or you've watched someone else be in over the years?
I know my favorite piece, truly. And James, this has nothing to do with you being here. I staged a piece about an Army unit in basic training who diminished their drill sergeant with political correctness concepts to such a degree that he's finally laying on the floor in tears. And it's a comedy. I mean, it was absolutely, and I read it and I thought, my gosh, how am I going to stage this group of soldiers all, because it was beautifully written and I wanted to be sure I did justice to it. And it was something I was very proud of, but credit to James, it started on his computer.
That was one of the hardest acting challenges because we couldn't stop laughing during rehearsal, and we had to stand there like, and like you would just like be cracking up.
Yeah, well, that was
behind
one of
your
the most
lips.
fun, which was watching Dina say that line and you trying
right,
not
and me
to
like
laugh.
sweating and like trying not to laugh.
Peggy?
I did a solo piece by Julie Boyd's daughter, Emily, several years ago.
2016.
Was it? Gosh, you're good. She was a librarian in England, and it was during World War II, and the library got bombed, and she was dying, surrounded by her favorite poetry. And I still, to this day, when I go to the grocery store, to the wine shop, I'll get stopped, and people will talk about that one. And there's some of them that really leave an impact, and those are really fun to do and meaningful, as you know.
I'll pick another James one. This called The Wilderness. It's set in the Civil War, and I was shot, and there was a forest fire encroaching, and I was a Southern soldier having a scene with a Northern soldier, and that was just like, I mean, that was a real play, like a real 10-minute play, and a whole world, and you know, an accent, and like it was just a real challenge. And so that run really sticks with me.
I'm realizing the costume shop must have hated me.
well, that was before we really had like a costume designer, so they're just like, huh?
Do you have a Confederate
you can wear this. Yeah, this jacket will fit you, and I'm like, doesn't really fit. I'm like, and this like hat, you know.
Robert?
It's hard to say. I mean, I'm a sucker for great language and really strong characters. I've been a character actor all my life, and there's one piece in this year's that hits home for many reasons for me. So right at the moment, it's my favorite.
Which one? You can say the title. You don't have to...
Well, it would be Meeting Fingerman.
And I'll say my favorite one, I'm not saying this because Robert's here, was the when Robert had the one where we tried to return the Christmas tree.
Oh, God.
Oh, that was so good.
I still think about that.
That was so fun.
That was Robert and Peggy.
Yes.
That
Where
was-
Robert like insists on returning the Christmas tree.
He does it his character did it every year on the day after Christmas, he would return his Christmas tree.
And that's the case of when we read it, is one of those cases you go, oh, that's Robert and Peggy. That was like, it's one of those you just go, well, that one's, okay, we've got 1 of the 10, that's an easy answer. So.
But what's funny about that one is that I based my character on a friend of mine, a guy I know, who, and I begged for a costume that looked like what he would wear, and it was, you know, sometimes you bond with a character and boom, you go. It's like when I had to do, Norman Rockwell last year, coming off a regional production of doing Sigmund Freud. And Matt sends me, an email. He said, "You are going to cut your beard, aren't you, for Norman Rockwell?" I said, "Yes, I am, but I'm a rather unlikely choice for Norman Rockwell." But it worked because it was, again, good writing, and I had a terrific scene partner, and really good direction. So when that stuff blends, boom.
Well, thank you everyone for coming. We have opening, so we have a show shortly. So thank you to the 4 of you for joining us.